call to order the select board meeting for Monday, August 10th for the town of Jamaica. And the first item, as always per usual, is if there's any last minute items that have popped up to be put on the agenda. I have a couple of here for others first.
Maybe after is Chris speaking at this meeting about anything with the, no?
Yes, that was actually one item that I do have also.
I have a few. I just wanted to update everyone on the town hall, which I was supposed to do. I did via email, and I'd also like to just kind of update everyone on the hotspots, because I've been doing some metrics on it to just kind of see how well they're being used.
All right, great, thanks.
I've got something.
Yeah, I had Paul. Go ahead. Yeah, I had you too, but maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's something else.
Well, I'd sent you a note. I'm not sure if any of the fire department chiefs are going to be able to show up. They wanted to talk a little bit about the cisterns. If they don't tune in later, put me down for the last thing, and I'll brief you on what we know about, at least what I know about what we know about the cistern issue.
Yeah, I know Bob's camping, so he's not going to be here.
Yeah. Actually, Dana was hoping to be able to call in. Yeah. The other thing I want to put on is I want to add a discussion of our statement that we had published.
Okay.
Sure.
And I do have it down there. Right. Okay. Yep. I got that. So I have you, Chris, on there for update on the communication union district and the resolution. We'll put that down as item number 8. I'll put you down, Paul, as item number, well, it'd be the new item number 9, I guess.
Anytime. Anyway.
Okay. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the July 27th Select Board meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Oh, I didn't write it down.
I move to approve the minutes from the July, I don't have the date in front of me,
July 27th.
22nd Select Board meeting.
I'll second that.
Second by Tom. Any discussion, any comments, corrections? Hearing none, I will, all in favor of approving the minutes from the 27th meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Unanimous approval. Thank you. The next items, the next 2 items are approve the timesheets and the pay orders. Terry did post those up online today. Not sure if everybody had a chance to look at them, but I'll probably meander into town a little bit later on in the week. But if there's any comments or questions on them right now, we'll take those. But definitely look at them, and if there's something that pops up as a whoa, we will bring that forward to the next meeting.
Very well.
Any Paul?
There's a question about, I noticed we got another package, order another box of bags for the transfer station. A crate of bags or something. Do we end up with 2 of those that we get ordered by mistake?
Are those the organics bags?
Yeah.
I'm going to imagine that it wasn't by mistake, but I didn't notice that. Our current process, which we will address a little later on in the meeting, our current process has been going through a fair number of those because they were requiring us to put all of our organics into those biodegradable bags. And in order for them to be somewhat more manageable, we had to, basically fill them only about 1/3 of the way full, and they still weigh 10, 15, 20 pounds. So we've been going through a fair number of them. So I would say that's a legit expense. There's probably only 50 in a box, and we can talk more about that when we review the organics collections.
Okay.
Anything else anything else, let me know, but I will go in and sign off on the pay orders later this week and the timesheets. The next item number 5, update and discussion regarding town operations. This is a kind of a placeholder that we come to every meeting regarding COVID or anything else of concern in town. I don't have any, but others.
Well, can I bring up what's your situation tomorrow, Sarah, with the voting? You needed somebody after 5, or do you need people to count tomorrow night?
I'm telling people to come in between 5 and 6 because we can count the absentee ahead of time. So if we can get the absentee done, then the rest of it should go quickly, hopefully.
Okay.
So anytime you can get there would be good.
I plan to come, so I'll be there.
Me too.
Rob 3. Oh,
I can join.
you can unmute yourself, Rob. If you, Rob had his hand up.
Oh, thank you. I can come too. What time do you think you're going to go there to count?
Between 5 and 6. Maybe it's 6. You want us to just come at 6, Sarah? Is that good? You're muted. Okay. 6 o'clock.
6
Town
o'clock.
office. Bring your mask.
Okay, perfect. So we will, whoever can make it tomorrow to help with counting, sounds like a great early turnout for the absentee voters, absentee ballots, which is awesome. And then just a reminder to everybody, and nobody's going to see this meeting, I guess, before tomorrow, but tomorrow's primary day, get out, vote. So the next item on the agenda is to discuss a proposed plan to address the speeding and safety concerns in town, including possible extension to the current sheriff's contract and the purchase of electronic speeding signs. Tom, do you want to jump in there on first?
I can start with the signs. So this afternoon, I sent all the select board members the quotes that I received from Treetop. These are for 9-inch signs. I also, that are solar. I also quoted out posts and fasteners. So it's pretty much everything we would need to hang the signs. Then when I looked at it, they also recommended buying a speed limit sign, which is not included in this. So that's about $20 more. So we're looking at another. So I quoted out 6 signs, which would two on Depot, 2 on Pikes Falls, and then 2 on Route 30. And we'd have to work with the state on Route 30. And the total was about $15,000 for all of those. A little bit over. I forget what the exact amount is. I'm sorry.
15,609.
Thank you. About $16,000. But that's pretty much nuts to bolts. So that would be, and then we'd have to obviously have the road crew or somebody install them. We'd have to find places to put them. That could be another issue, especially on Depot Street where there isn't a lot of, you have the sidewalks. There's not a lot of curb. There's not a lot of room on the sides. And is someone going to want it in their front yard? Because it's going to be fairly large with the solar on it. So that's the question. At the same time, and so these machines are just radar guns, that's all. And you set them for a certain amount and someone comes speeding by and it'll maybe flash or something like that to tell them to slow down. But that's all it is. It doesn't collect any data. There's no wireless. You can't access it from your smartphone. So it's just basically, this is the vanilla model, about $2,500 a piece total. Terry, on her own, went out and got a quote from a different firm, and those were posted up on the website. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to this. Hers came in, she quoted out 4 signs. She didn't quote out the 6. Let me look here real quick, sorry. Radar signs, here we go. So she quoted out 4, and these are actual ones that say slow down if you're going too fast. These also have some sort of internet contract that you have to buy. So these are ones you probably can store data with, and you can go online and maybe access it from a smartphone. They're about $1,000 more at $3,600 each, and then another $350 each a year. So, if we move that to 6, maybe they drop the price a little bit to $3,500. But still, you're looking at, so just for the 4 units with this unit is $15,000, is $15,800. So they're really about the same. You want 6, you want 4. Again, and it's a conversation of what do we want from the signs? Do we just want signs put out that kind of scare people and like radar sign, I got to slow down? Or do we actually want to gather the data and then have someone analyze that data? So that's the question, one question. The other thing that I asked for a quote on, and I did this morning when I was poking around the Treetop website, is speed humps, not the bumps, not the little tall high ones, but what we're talking about, the long, the really thick one, or the spread out ones. The 10-foot, I'm assuming our roadways are 10 foot wide. Is that right?
On each travel lane,
Yeah, the travel lane, 10 foot.
I'm guessing roughly.
The 10 foot were $850 a piece for at list. So I mean, again, if we went in and said we wanted to buy 6 of them, that's putting 2 on Depot Street, 2 on Water Street, because if we don't do it on Water Street, people are just going to zoom around Water Street to get to Depot Street, and then 2 on Pikes Falls. That would be, you know, do the math. I didn't do the math, sorry. 850 times 6.
$5,100.
$5,100 for those, yeah. So, you know, and they're removable. They're plastic. They're removable. Again, they're not the high ones. I know Andy's concerned about vehicles going over and bottoming out. These are the ones that are they're more, they're flattened curves is what they are.
I think they sometimes call them speed tables also, because
Yeah,
it's
speed
a
tables or
smaller
speed
rise on
humps
them and they're longer
versus-
spread.
Speed humps versus speed bumps, which are the ones where you hit them, and you know it is very much that. So,
Is there any reason why we couldn't do a mix and match between the
definitely.
two types?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we could spend $20,000 and get it all. I mean, we just have to know. One of the things that was asked in the last meeting was for Terry to come up with how we're going to get the money to pay for this.
She
So-
had talked to me about that, and there is money in the Highway Reserve Fund.
Okay.
So there is money to cover this. That's money used for, you know, all kinds of other highway stuff, including like the paving going on and things like that. But there is money there to at least cover. I didn't get into a dollar amount, but at least to cover the amount of your initial quote. So
Yeah.
I think we've got it covered.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, and I don't want to be negative about it. And I know a lot of people in town are concerned about this. When we start putting signs that light up with big solar panels on the top of them in people's front yards, are people going to say, whoa, well, I didn't think it was going to be in front of my house. You know, can't we put it farther down in front of someone else's house? I'm just, you know, that's something that needs to be worked out too, is the location of them.
Paul?
Yeah, one other thing that needs to be worked out, according to our purchasing plan, we need 3 bids when we start getting into these amounts.
Okay.
The other thing that she had on the other one, and I can't pull it up on my computer for whatever reason, but one of the advantages of the company that she talked to, who again, the name escapes me, is that there's a fee for the software. It's not a licensing fee to the extent that internet would require a regular thing, but there's a fee for the software. The software is pretty sophisticated. I mean, there's an awful lot of information ranging from the number of vehicles to the average speed differentiation between what's expected and the overspeed. There's a lot into it. They're significantly more expensive, but there's a lot more sophisticated.
Yeah. My question would be, is it a yearly licensing fee though, or is it something that's...
Her thought was, and I looked over the paperwork and I didn't see anything specific about it. It just said the licensing fee.
Okay,
She thought it was the one-time price, but I couldn't find anything one way or the other.
I will call Eric tomorrow. Eric Wolf is our sales guy, and I will say explain why I'm calling, and see if he can give me some more information about that.
Okay.
If we don't, unless, I mean, again, it's a conversation to have here, and I know there was a lot of pressure last week, 2 weeks ago, to move forward.
I think this is going to, I mean, there's obviously a chunk of money. I think there's a big concern in town. It's going to be something that will last us a while. I mean, yes, there is if it is a yearly fee that's ongoing, but these are things that we'll get benefit from for a while. I like Jessica's thoughts that, some composite of all this, and maybe not to jump in and say, get all 6 now. Let's say get 2 now, 4 now. I know that may impact the quote, but try some stuff, see if it works. Maybe get one of them that has the recording aspect to it, and set up 6 sign posts around town. And they're a little cumbersome to move around, but maybe we can put them up and keep them there for 2 months, and then move them around a little bit to keep people on their toes a little, and also cut back on our cost and learn from the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would think I would support getting the ones that, again, whatever the software license is, and if we're willing to take on a $1,400 charge every year added to our budgets, I think collecting the data is something that could be interesting. And I know there was a lot of people last week who were like, yeah, we need to get to this data. And other people saying, well, we know what the data is. But I think it would be, rather than a hearsay, you throw one of these signs on Depot Street, there are 2 of them, one each direction, and you can really see what people are going. And if it's, if that's not that effective, then we throw in a speed bump and slow people down. I mean, I don't want it to be this huge, I guess I don't want to ruin the feel of the town by having all this stuff there, but I think something is necessary. I'm saying you don't want to have signs and speed bumps and this and that, and it's just a mess to even get home. But I think, I support the signs. I think it's something that we should really seriously consider. And I'd be willing to get another third quote on something else to figure out, and then present that at the next meeting with hopefully us being ready to make a decision.
We also have the, I've been in contact with Wyndham Regional about doing a speed study. And I'm still waiting for a call back from Jeff or Todd, one of the Nugent brothers, who is the guy that I've been pointed to by 3 different directions, who's the guy who will tell me how to do this. And so there's something to be said about getting the speed survey done first to find out exactly where the problems are, or if there is even a problem, because we're all using subjective observations about speed before we actually commit to what we're going to do. Having said that, we need 3 bids. We haven't talked about the lines. The lines are the cheapest, the least invasive. One of the complaints we had about the speed bump, and when I was talking about doing the rumble strips, was whoever lives near them is going to hear this all night long or hear this all day long. And so the strips were popular because they were quiet. So there's a couple of other options. But the question I put to you guys is, should we not get the speed survey done first before we commit to this? Or do we want to start committing to these things regardless of a speed survey?
Andy.
I thought that Wyndham Regional had a bunch of data already, if you want to look through it, from 2001, 2011, just some data, not official, looking at the sheriff's department's last, their billing, or I didn't exactly get to see how much traffic monitoring they did, but some people might not believe it, but I believe that speed has settled down some on Route 30. Only because anyone who lives from Brattleboro to Manchester comes to these small towns, they know they might get pinched in a 30. And my hope is that the presence of the sheriffs over the past several years is one of the reasons why we're not getting hardly any revenue in speeding tickets. So we could call the sheriff in and have him speak to a number of concerns we have or about the contract. But I never called Chris or tried to retrieve that old data. I heard Mrs. Dorda Duque said that the data was there, and I'd like to, I'd be willing to see if they could email me that and thumb through it. And maybe it's already done. Maybe we already know that there is or isn't a problem on whatever roads they did that on.
I can say I disagree that the speeding has gone down. Because I go up to town at the D&Ks, and these guys are flying through town. Sometimes with abandon. I mean, I've seen trucks flying through at 60 miles an hour. It's crazy.
Right. And the folks that live in the village along Route 30 are still observing it, and it's being shared with me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, it's hard to tell when you're looking at a car go by. I mean, you know that they're going too fast, whether they're going 40, 50, 60. But I think there's enough feedback, concern. I'm a data person. I mean, I'm a Lean Six Sigma process improvement person. I understand the value of data. And I think that's super important to kind of gather as much as we can. And that's maybe why some of my reluctance to jump in wholeheartedly into a $15,000. But I also think we need to take action and to do part of this at least right now. And that's where I'm kind of coming from, thinking that, we get 1 or 2 signs. Some of the concerns, I think, if I recall, don't exactly remember, but if I recall, the Wyndham Regional study was primarily for Route 30. So that's part of the concern here. The other part is Depot and Water Street and South Hill and Pikes Falls and stuff. So there's a mixture of things going on that we're trying to maybe solve too much with one thing. But I think by doing something, we're going to still learn more. So we're going to still be able to gather some data.
I'm all for a sign at the front and back of Route 30, coming in and going out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
We can
that can't hurt anything.
right.
No,
and
right.
I'm just mentioning that there might be some data. I wasn't saying that
No.
there's not speed.
And we
Someone can go up
pursue
through. Someone can go up through my car, for instance, in first gear, which could sound like it's going 80 miles an hour when it's going like 22, or a truck. But I know when a car is coming through 60 miles an hour. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So, and
A
can
lot
we,
of towns have those, like, we've requested the cart from the sheriff's department. It's down in Newfane right now.
Turned
I don't know
off.
when we're gonna get that.
It's
If we
turned
still have a
off.
couple signs in the village, then I'd have no problem with that. I got a problem with something else, but I won't go into that now.
The Wyndham County one's down in Newfane's turned off. It hasn't been on for a couple of days because I've been driving through there. So I don't.
Well, it's on when I go by. I went by it once. I think the batteries, if it's not, I think the batteries die on and then it runs out.
but we can be
But it sets
pursuing.
my radar off.
We could be pursuing multiple things at the same time. So we can be
Right.
pursuing the survey while we triple bid the signs and do a comparison of the signs, the cost and the value. And we can do a mix of different kinds of signs, and we can do, instead of all 6 at once, we could do 3 with an option for 3 more.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of pursuing it all at the same time.
Because I think that a lot of the speeding coming down Pikes Falls is coming towards town, right? So you have that one coming into town. You have the 2 on Depot Street. I think that's a great plan to start. Yeah, and then we see how it works. And if it doesn't work, and if we do use this data, if we do use the data that we gather, then we should be able to find out if it has actually, how bad the speeding problem is. And then, if it continues, then we look at other options. I think that's a very reasonable approach.
And I would also layer in Paul's advice that the painted strips are also good. I mean, I would see all of these being pursued at the same time. Paul, how is that something we do on our own using the road crew, or we have to commission?
So I can speak to some of that. Sorry if I jumped in on Paul, but I met with Lexa and Keith last week about what we can do, what we can't do, trying to understand the signage in town. There's obviously a lot more restrictions on what we can do on Route 30. So we're pushing with VTrans to, the first thing was to get the crosswalks repainted. But in that whole same process, we can talk about getting these lines striped. Terry's also given me some information to work with Keith as far as getting our own crosswalks painted, the ones on our roads. We can do that on our own. It's a fairly small expense. It's a local guy, so it falls underneath the procurement level. So we're moving with getting that done right away. It usually needs to get done once a year anyways. The paint just wears off. So that's a little update answer to your question, but Paul, I don't know if you had others to add to it.
Well, just that we're not going to do any painting until after we get the Pikes Falls Right. And the question, we had several questions about painting stripes. I think the most common one is what they did many years ago, is putting 3 stripes, decreasing size stripes. And I think we can do that with really inexpensively. I suspect that we would contract with that, although there's no reason why our guys couldn't do it. I suspect it would make sense to contract with that. At the same time, we're thinking about the same crew painting the sidewalk, crosswalks. That seemed to make sense in my mind. I haven't locked in on anything yet because I haven't had the chance to talk with the pros at WRC. But that's certainly something in the back of my mind as we speak with them to find out what their thoughts and experiences are. I don't know why the state stopped doing it, frankly. I thought it worked really, really well the last time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure why they did either. I think we may have to work with them to get stuff painted on Route 30, but why they haven't painted it, I have no idea.
Yeah. But as far as this end is concerned, I think, Tom's correct. Most of the speed issues are people coming into town as they go past my house. By the time they're going the other way, they've made that intersection at South Hill and they're accelerating past my house. And there are people who are doing much more than 25 miles an hour going in that direction. But the vast majority of the people who are coming off the mountain heading into town.
Yep, thanks.
Greg, John
Joel,
Beacon.
I see Joel, yeah.
Oh, and John does too.
All right, well, just to confirm, I walk up and down Depot Street to the park very frequently, and there are mostly out-of-town cars that are doing much greater than 25 miles an hour, like 40 or 45 miles an hour. Also, the crosswalk, who painted the crosswalk near Andy's house?
I believe it was Bill Joyce.
Was that, because that's all gone.
Right, they all wore off, and I think paint wears off in a year. I mean, that was a year
But there's
ago.
better quality paints and lesser quality paints.
Yeah.
So maybe we shouldn't save money on the quality of the paint.
I think that's a valid comment. I mean, I know that even on the state highways, the paint's off of them in a year too, but we could look into upgrading whatever he's working on. Or maybe there's somebody else that can do the job.
It's a tough environment here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. There's better paints. John Beacon wanted to talk, Paul, or Greg.
Okay, yeah, John.
You got to unmute yourself, John.
Unmute yourself, yeah, and then introduce yourself. I'm not sure everybody knows who you are.
Okay, how's that?
Good.
Good.
Okay. Well, my name is John Vegan, and I live less than a half mile from Hamilton Falls. And this summer, there has been a surge in people visiting the falls, and it's degraded into kind of a dangerous situation. There are cars all over the place, so that if a rescue vehicle had to get in there, they really couldn't. And there's a tremendous amount of garbage. And this is a designated natural area by state law. And I was wondering if the Jamaica Select Board could write to the Department of Forests, Parks and Recreation and encourage them to really do something about the Hamilton Falls situation. It's really pretty serious, especially the sanitary issues with COVID-19. People leave these kind of tissues or handy wipes that they use to clean their hands and steering wheels and shifters. They throw them out onto the ground. There's dirty diapers. It's really disintegrated into a mess.
No, I hear you. Actually, I'm going to maybe just, I don't want to interrupt. I feel your comment and
Okay.
that it's legit. I'm not denying that part.
Sure.
But I still want to kind of stay on topic a little bit with, I mean, since we are discussing the speed issues, you're welcome. I'll bring you back in. I thought it was comments on the speed. But we'll bring you back in under public concerns because I think those are certainly valid concerns.
And the only way it's related to speeding is counting the number of vehicles. Might be something that Forests and Parks would like to do. But when would you bring me in? Can you give me a rough idea?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
When would you bring me in under new business, members of the public?
Somewhat depends on how lengthy we go. I would imagine it may be in an hour or so. I mean, it's super hard to tell. But we've heard your comments. I think we can still address them if for some reason you can't make through the full meeting.
Can you tell me an email to write to?
Sure, I'll give you my email address. That's perfect. It's GMEU
Yeah.
LEMANS
Okay.
at Jamaica SB.
At Jamaica?
No, it's not at, I'm sorry, it's all one word. Jamaica SB is all part of it.
G. Muleman's Jamaica.
S as in Sam, B as in boy.
Right.
For Select Board at SV Cable.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Anytime you'd like to change your email to Greg Mulemans at Jamaica, Vermont, you let me know.
Yeah.
That address exists. You just need to convert over.
I want to be just GM at me.
Okay.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you.
Greg.
And you can always get it again. If that doesn't go through, you can always reach out to the town office and get my contact information.
Yeah, and those addresses are actually on the website as well.
Okay,
So
great.
you can check the Jamaica.org website, and it's under the select board. This list of all our emails.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted your discussion.
No problem. That's all good. Great to hear from you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, so back to
So
a couple items. I mean, we've been talking about the speed signs for.
yeah, so I'll get another quote for next week, for 2 weeks, and then we'll have 3 quotes. And then we'll at least be ready at some point to have some good discussion about that. And if we wanted to move forward, we could. But yeah, it's back to what Paul's saying. Do we want to get more data? Do we want to try to research what Andy's saying and get more, find the data that's out there? Or do we just want to, you know, talking what Travis was saying last time, you know, I've come 4 times before the board and there's always been speeding. And I will attest, I walk down there too, and there's always people going fast up and down Depot Street. So it's hearsay, yeah, but I've experienced it often.
But can we also pull the trigger on that survey that Paul was describing? Is that something we can also
What is that, Paul? Is that putting the 2 little things in the road, the 2 little tubes?
I'm not exactly sure. I've got to talk to him about that. The options are the tubes. And I think that's the most likely option cost-wise, but I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to be going at him with a blank slate and see what he comes back with.
Okay.
But as soon as I get in touch with him,
worth following up on.
That's the question.
And also, I don't know. I mean, I can take the lead, or Paul, or you sound like you may have talked a little bit too about the painting on the roads. But I can talk to you about it too, and we'll take the initiative to get some quotes on getting the sidewalks repainted, and also the Jeff is probably a perfect person too to talk about a contact with V-Trans as far as getting the stuff painted on Route 30.
Right. I'm going to talk to him about both pieces, the Road 30 part and the part that's our roads. What we could do, though, when you're talking about the paintings, recontracting for the paintings on the sidewalks, is talk to those guys and find out what it costs to have them come up and throw some paint on the on designated locations. For example, the 2 25-mile-an-hour signs, as an example of where to put them.
Yeah.
And I know when I talked with Mark Anderson, it was over a year ago now, he was like, you know, you can go and talk to Chris down at Wyndham Regional, but oftentimes those are taken and they're out somewhere else. So there's going to be some lead time. It's not like they're sitting around. They're going to say, hey, can we have this? And they're going to say, yeah, come and get it. Generally, it's like you're going to have to wait at least a couple of months before whoever's doing their traffic study, either on Route 5 or somewhere in one of the other towns, comes back and returns them, because there's only one or 2 sets maybe. So
that may in fact be the case. Yeah.
And I know I saw one somewhere in Brattleboro. I forget where it was now, but it's down there right now.
Yeah, and the sheriffs are still in our town, still set with our number of hours, still doing traffic surveillance. I mean, obviously they're getting pulled in a lot of directions. And then Andy reminded me too that the state police are showing much more of a presence up and down the valley too, which is just part of their regular routine. So there's a lot of things that are being done, and it's a multifaceted project, I guess.
On the topic of, you're talking about what the police have done, I was going over the recent reports. There were zero tickets. We had no income from them for this reporting period.
Wow.
They were there. They were out apparently on the roads, but there was zero income.
Yeah,
Well,
that kind of struck me as a little odd too. But then on the flip side, you could say, well, maybe there wasn't anybody speeding on the times they were out there, or people knew they were there. So you could look at it positive and negatively, but it was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and we're going to have Mark. Are you going to reach out to Mark to come to one of the meetings, Greg? I mean, we talked about that on the special.
Yeah, Andy was going to reach out to trying to set up a time. This meeting was a little quick to get him set up to have him join in one of our meetings, and we can ask him some questions. And he can then hear our concerns too. Could we try for the 24th, the next meeting? We could certainly try for that, yeah.
Because it wouldn't hurt to have his input blended in while we're in the decision-making process, as opposed to after we spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, you're mute. Andy.
You're muted, Andy.
No wonder you weren't listening to me.
Well,
that happens whether it's on or anyway. I could, you know, if we have some firm questions, I could ask him, you know, before he gets here, so he could be thinking about those. And then we can pummel him with questions once we get him here. They used to come up once a year anyway, before we would sign the contract.
Yeah, he did last year. I remember him coming up, yeah.
Sheriff Clark always, if we asked him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, then we could ask, you know, how come there wasn't, what, one ticket written? I said to Greg earlier that, you know, we didn't hire them to, I mean, it's nice to get some tickets to curb the expense or to ease the expense of the contract. But maybe there wasn't anyone going 10 or 15 over, and they didn't, believe me, they would want to write tickets. They get some of that money too. I just find it hard to believe nobody was speeding and they didn't write any tickets. I wasn't able to access this month, what they have been doing. You know, they tell you what roads they patrol, where they sat, how many people they pulled over, how many warnings they give, how many tickets are issued, or if there's citations, which don't bring fines, that kind of thing. But if there's questions, if there's like questions I can ask, you know, so he can have answers for him besides the ones we're going to ask him, I'd like to know what those are. If there's none, then we can just try to schedule him to come up.
Mm-hmm.
What's your pleasure?
I don't have any
call. I
specific
can put a
questions.
call in to see if he'll come at the next meeting if he can.
Well, you could tell him that we're discussing ways to deal with the traffic issues that we have here before somebody gets hurt. And I think he might have some opinions about what works best in his experience about signs or speed tables or lines, or that kind of expertise would be good to have in the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think another piece is, you know, we can look at their contract, but it's pretty boilerplate in a lot of ways. But just to kind of get I mean, you can probably put this in his elevator speech or his overview or whatever of just generally what are they doing when they're up here and what are they looking for, and part of what their tasks are, you know, for us and for others that may wonder.
It's mostly traffic. The majority of the money goes to traffic enforcement.
It might not hurt to ask him some thoughts on both Pikes Falls issue, the traffic up at the falls, and maybe he's some thoughts on what's going on up on the other issue that the other gentleman brought up on the falls.
Yeah, but Hamilton Falls.
Yeah.
Right.
There may be some action that we don't know about that these guys could offer us some suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
So is that what we want to do? What's the next meeting? I'll figure out the next meeting and I'll put a call in the morning.
24th. It's the 24th.
Yeah. I know kind of related to this, as it came up as an option at last week's meeting and was one of the subtopics of this agenda, was the possibility of extending the sheriff's contract, or add an extension, or however you want to the terminology of picking up some additional hours. And that may be worth discussing with him directly too. You know, they're obviously going to say, hey, sure, I'll put in some more hours, but whether they have capacity, what would they be focused on, those types of things, or do we want to discuss that here now? I mean, I think there's some merit to it, but it's also just throwing money after something.
Well, there'll be a benefit to speaking to him about the differentiation between adding hours and reallocating hours. There may be sufficient hours. They may just need to be moved around a little bit on their schedule, but it would be a good idea to talk to him about the reality of that option.
Okay.
I'd say that makes a lot of sense, but I'd also say let's maybe be prepared to act on, you know, if we get some information at that point to act on that.
Agreed.
So we can decide to reallocate or add hours at that meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, so are we all in alignment with some tasks, I guess, on this issue? You know, I do feel for the people in town too that we need to be moving, and it seems, you know, everybody's got a lot of stuff on their plate to get some stuff lined up so we can take some action on some stuff.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. On to the next item was a discussion regarding the collection of the organics at the transfer station. As you probably know from our discussion last week, the collection of organics has been quite ugly, to put it mildly. Triple T did acknowledge, from our observations and theirs, that these organic bags that we've been buying are a little bit too biodegradable and not really making it through the whole process and not working the way they should. So they had also proposed in their original contract that they would collect on a weekly basis the composting bins. We opted out of that, just seeing that there was a possible solution where we didn't need to pay that additional fee. It appears that that's not working. I mean, it is not working. So they do have an option to pick up the containers on a weekly basis. It would not, I spoke with them today, we would not be required to put it in the organic bags. That would save a whole lot of effort from, basically on Dan's part to separate things as people bring them in. Most of our residents are bringing them in bulk and not bagging things. We'd be able to layer in the sawdust, which keeps the flies down, helps with the composting anyways. It was kind of difficult when you're throwing organic bags or basically plastic bags into a container and then throwing sawdust on them wasn't really doing much. But having them pick it up weekly takes us out of that business, and also gets it picked up more quickly. The cost was $20 per container, per 60-gallon container. They have a truck that they'd be able to pick it up with. And it's not quite as sophisticated as Casella, but they would be able to do it themselves as opposed to a lot of work on our part. We roughly go through or fill probably, I would say, 3 to 4 containers a week. So we're talking, we're talking roughly $300, $320, somewhere around there. I think our original quote from Casella was in the $260 or $280 range. So it's roughly the same price as what we were paying before for organics, and a much smoother process. Has the benefit of sticking with the same vendor. It also has an upside benefit of bringing the organics down to Wyndham Solid Waste, where they have their own composting facility, which we are a member of. So technically, we're getting a little bit of some money coming back to us in some small sense. So that's my overview. I would gladly accept a motion to change this process around.
So I move that we do that.
Okay.
I'd like to put on the motion I'm not sure of the amount of containers per week.
Andy, can you move to your right a little bit? You get closer to the mic. There you go.
Couldn't quite hear what you're saying.
I just was wondering, how much a week do you think? 20, 40, 60, $80 a week?
So it's $20 per 60-gallon container, and there's 6 containers there now, but our estimate is that it would fill up 3 or 4 containers a week.
All right.
So it'd be $80 a week.
Just hearing some of the discussion and the difficulty with this transfer station, of course, but some other ones too, I would move that we do that.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Yes, a clarification. Okay. We're moving to do 2 things. One thing is, how's that going to change how the citizens approach the issue? Do they change in what they're doing as far as separation? I missed part of that, what you're discussing.
Yeah, actually, in a better sense, they will be more able to do what they've always been doing, and just taking their buckets and their pans and throwing them into this big container, and not worrying about bags and things like that.
I guess I'm not talking about pans. I'm talking about garbage, the mulching stuff that we've been separating now to try that. Will that still go in separate bags and put in with the trash? Or I guess I'm asking, what directions are we going to give to the people who are using us?
For the residents?
Yeah.
The residents won't have to change anything. They can take all their organic material that they've been bringing to the transfer station, and they will be putting it into a large bucket like they had been with Casella. Now they're actually placing it in a smaller container that Dan then gathers into a plastic bag and puts into the large container.
All right. So
the residents, it's much more streamlined for the residents.
So the residents are still separating garbage from trash.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
All
Which they've been doing for some time.
Well,
Yeah,
at least
so-
for a month.
They're still separating their organics, and there's a list of what those are. I mean, it's obviously compost, it's vegetables, but they also meat, even bread, fish bones, paper is fine. I mean, shredded paper is actually good because it absorbs a lot of the liquids that are in there. The compost needs many forms of biodegradables in order to work. So paper is good. Brown paper is good. I mean, put it in a paper bag. All that can just now go into one container if we went along with this.
All right.
So the motion's out there, seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of moving our process, retaining Triple T to do the compost, but changing their process? Say aye.
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 All
Any
right.
opposed? All in favor is unanimous. Thank you. I will let them know tomorrow, and I know Dan will be very grateful. And I think our residents would be very grateful too. I mean, it was definitely getting messy up there. All right, thank you. So I've inserted you, Chris, at this point for an update on the Communication Union District and also the resolution to form a communications committee.
Well, thank you. Last select board meeting, as you remember, I asked the board to consider passing a resolution to form a communications committee to work on issues in Jamaica that would help the Deer Valley CUD to implement the broadband fiber network, and secondly, to work on communication issues that were unique to Jamaica and not necessarily directly involved with the CUD. I sent out a draft resolution to all the members, and I just resent it a couple of minutes ago in case you forgot it. It's kind of wordy. A simpler one would do, but I put the whereases in there because one of the good things I noticed after I proposed this is actually fulfilling the action item under our town plan's communication policy paragraph. So it's a twofer. So it also turns out there are two items that have come up in the interim that aren't necessarily involving the CUD, but some residents of Jamaica might be able to take advantage of. There are two programs under the CARES Act that will pay for extensions, line extensions to the homes of either students or teleworkers or people dependent on telehealth, so they can get 25 3 megabit service if they don't have it. In one case, you have to apply to the Public Service Board, and the Communications Committee could help with that. And the second is one that's initiated by the various ISP providers. So if you have the resolution there and it's acceptable, and I'd ask you to consider it, I can read it to you now if you don't. And I'd ask you to appoint myself, John Sahikian, and Brian Zeroff as the initial members, but we'll try and recruit other people from the town to help us.
No, it sounds great, and I like the idea that you can solve. I mean, you kill two birds with one stone in a lot of ways, I guess.
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. I hadn't read the town plan in a while.
Okay, yeah. Paul?
Yes, getting back to the little nitnoy details about appointing community members to a select board committee. If we have a select board sanctions committee, we run into open meetings law, which gives you all kinds of hassles. So if we can do that in such a way that your committee is sort of ad hoc, or at least not married to the select board, that would simplify your meeting minutes, your agendas, all those kinds of things.
You could make it a planning commission committee. It's just that the town plan said, it's a joint responsibility. So
It'd be the same thing. If it's a planning commission committee, it's still, because the planning commission is underneath the select board, we run into the open meeting law as long as it's a town function. If it's an ad hoc thing that other people can do independent, we're okay. Otherwise, we're going to run into the usual open meeting law kinds of hassle.
The problem is if it's ad hoc, it doesn't actually satisfy the requirements that this resolution is designed to satisfy. So yes, it would be subject to an extension of some of the elements of open meeting, but I don't think changing the resolution to somehow distance or create an ad hoc quality would actually satisfy what Chris needs.
Yeah, and I think actually it's probably beneficial. I mean, and Chris certainly being on the Plan Commission is aware of the open meeting laws, and it's probably beneficial for us as a town to move forward, and also for the input that this committee can gather to just work with the open meeting laws. I mean, it's great to be that you bring those up, and that we're aware that this group will need to live underneath those guidelines.
We can make it like the ZBA, which holds its meetings at the same time or same evening as the Planning Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Different
exactly.
And,
yeah,
and have to keep different set of minutes and all that, and follow the open meeting laws. But it's not that big a burden.
Well, I move to accept the resolution that Chris has presented to form the Jamaica Communications Committee.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Chris.
Well, thank you.
And anything else that you wanted to update on? I mean, I think that's good. It sounds like the group's moving forward. You also had the reasoning and the why you needed this part of the task of the committee, I guess, was the research.
Well, yes, I can. I got a couple of interesting things. I sent out another email showing you the maps of coverage in Jamaica before and after Comcast and Consolidated challenged them. And if you recall, in one case, it showed underserved areas both south and north of Route 30. And after the challenges, they were all gone. And apparently, at least according to the FCC, we have 25.3 coverage in all of Jamaica, which of course is silly, but that's what they think. And I guess it was 2 weeks ago in the Sunday morning show on CBS, they had a feature on the lack of broadband coverage in what amounts to half of the country. And so we're hardly alone. All over America seems to have pretty much the same problem. I'm going to put the link to that, or at least I'll ask Jackie to put the link to that in the next journal, because it's very interesting.
Yeah, more people aware is better.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that covered is the way the FCC counts what broadband coverage you have. And they use the census blocks. And if you have broadband coverage, meaning 25.3, in at least one location in a census block, they count the whole census block as having coverage. So since we have at least one house in the town of Jamaica that has 25.3 coverage, they figure the whole town has it. And I mean, this is crazy, but that's the way they do it. And so that's, I mean, and then on top of that, the state uses the FCC data for their idea of who has what coverage. And they know better, but they don't have any other source of data to work with. So I think that's why there's a pressing need for us to figure out what coverage we actually do have, so we can argue from a set of facts rather than, this crazy situation the FCC has.
Yeah. Well, super. Thanks for taking on another project.
No, I'm going to get somebody else to do this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, Tom, you had some other additions to the kind of the broadband topic.
Real quick, I've done little metrics on some of the two hotspots in town. The one that was put in at the town hall in the last, so that was installed on the 21st of July. Since then, we've had 70 users who have logged into it. Wow. And have downloaded about 3,500 gigabytes of data. So it is immediate hit. It's being widely used. Obviously, people from the state park are coming up. No one I recognize when I look at their device names or something. So it's definitely, people are using it. So that's exciting. The one at the town hall, not so much. Obviously, a little bit off the beaten path. We've had 3 users log into that since it's right around the same date. So, so obviously the one at the town hall because it is in the central village, people are driving up or walking up from the state park or just walking through town and they're using it. So definitely it's being used and I'll keep an eye on it. And, they still haven't licensed it yet. The company was supposed to license it. I was kind of talking to them about, hey, we need to get this done. And he's like, oh yeah, we'll get that done. Don't worry about it. And it's like, okay, when is that going to happen? So I'm going to ping him and just say, hey, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the license come in yet. But yeah, so it is getting used and just wanted to update everyone on that.
Super. Yeah. Chris.
That's great.
Yeah, a really good idea to give Rob Fish of the Public Service Board this feedback.
Okay, I can do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, definitely. Yep. I will definitely talk with them. I'll send him an email.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
So the next item I will, last week, I'll update you on Robert Simmons, who had joined the meeting last week regarding the access to his land across the Rawson Bridge. He actually did send a letter to the town after speaking with maybe some of his attorneys that said he was going to take 60 days to evaluate what the process would be to come up with this request. I mean, I'll read the one paragraph out of this letter. He said, rather, I would like to take 60 days to investigate the cost of repairing the bridge to suit my forestry needs. If the cost to repair the personal liability risk of keeping the bridge is reasonable, I would ask the town to 1, declassify and or discontinue the trail, and 2, quitclaim the Rawson Bridge to me to fix and secure as a private bridge for forestry purposes. But he's asking 60 days to kind of come up with that. We've looped our attorney in to basically say this is going on, but he's gonna, Paul's gonna wait to hear from what the proposal is or what the request is before we dig in our time in it. So there's probably pros and cons to this, but let's see what he comes up with. So that's the update to that. I don't know if there's any other comments or questions on it, but just a point of information, I guess, at this point. All right, so the next item I have.
Follow up on that, Greg? Since Sarah is on the phone, Sarah, do you want to just email me the deed? And I can just look at that during this 60 days so that we have a sense of the one open kind of legal question I had, which is, what does the deed actually provide?
So the deed to his property or the deed to the bridge?
Well, the bridge is on his property, so, right?
It is.
Right. So the deed itself should have language regarding an easement to the bridge or any carve out in ownership. So if Sarah, there is actually a separate deed for the bridge, I'd want to see that also, but at the very least, shoot me by email if you wouldn't mind the deed for his property.
Yeah, I mean, just for curiosity, I mean, I welcome that, Jessica, but I think too we will. I mean, we're gonna turn this to our attorney. I mean, certainly any kind of comments or not comments, but any kind of additions to this that you wanted to add on. But I don't see going too far right now. Look into the deed for sure. I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
But we're going to turn this to Paul Gillies, just as our expert on these matters, and he's he knows the inside and out of town roads and town structure and whatnot. So, but I just threw that out there. Don't stop doing what you're doing, but just, but we will turn it to him. The next item I have, I don't see any, or is there any fire department people on the meeting? So I'll defer to Paul to do an update on some of the stuff they're working on for water access.
Yeah, thanks. We're talking about cisterns and basically water access for any kind of fire or anything that occurs in the town, which right now is pretty well undercovered. As some of you may have noticed, we're out working on a cistern that's right near Lex's property, right on Route 30, and we were checking it, make sure it was all up to snuff, and we were training the new guys on it. But the other question that we'd come up with was the possibility of paying for some new cisterns to be put in behind the firehouse. And Bob got some numbers, and he's got a lot more information, but I'll give you the numbers he gave me. We got a couple of options. One is large 7,500 gallon tanks. We need about 30,000 gallons. The fire people think it'd take about, if we had something going downtown, we were going to want 30,000 gallons. We were going to want it right now. Obviously, we'll start the usual tanker train to get that going, but this, if it's at the firehouse, we've got it immediately available. So, excuse me, for the larger tanks, which incidentally will take a crane to put in, a bit more than we have. They're about 10,500 per tank, so it comes to about 42 grand to get 30,000, and there's some other miscellaneous pieces up to about 300,000 to connect them. The smaller tanks are 2,300 gallon, 2,375. They're $1,500 a piece, but we'd need about 13 of them, and they'd be, tiered up to feed each other. So that came to about $19,700 roughly. So the smaller tanks are eminently cheaper, more manageable physically to put them in. And that's he got this from the Washburn Vault Company in Hinsdale, New Hampshire, and they've worked with this sort of thing before. I believe they're the same guys who put in the water tanks for WW in Newfane, but I'm not positive. But at any rate, that's kind of where it is. Bob's out of town right now. There's some other things that are getting done, but we're kind of focused pretty closely on improving the water availability. This year, the creek has been so dry that it's very difficult for us to throw a suction device in anywhere to get enough water to be able to support fire services. So we've really gotten to the point where we really have to do something. We can't continue to hope we can draw out of the river. So that's just about 2 minutes of what Bob Stomsky wanted you guys to know about where we are, about the approximate cost of putting cisterns. He is also in contact with a gentleman whose name escapes me. I put it in the letter, I think, to you, Greg, to look into grants. It's called I think it's Vermont Rural Fire.
I can't recall either.
Yeah, I can't pull up on my other computer, sorry. But at any rate, these are the guys who are handling the rural fire department grants, waters, where you see the dry hydrants stuck around the state, those kinds of things. And so he's actively working that. He's worked with a guy before, apparently. So that's good. He's got the connection to him, but we'll see where that goes. But I just want to give you that update from the last time we talked.
Okay, thank you. And I think there was one other related, somebody on the Hunter Lane, and I don't know if I was going to bring this up. I don't technically think we need to vote on it. I think for lack of vote means we already have an answer, but somebody has a pond on their property and had suggested that the town take over, basically classify his driveway as a town road so that we could get access to his pond on demand for the water, and he'd give us access to his water.
Yeah, that road actually services a couple of properties, not just his. And the pond belongs to him and one other guy. And we'd gone up earlier in the year to test that location, drew some water out of it to make sure it was okay. But it is up a private road. The private road is not in compliance with town road standards. And for us to be able to take, if we were inclined, that road would have to be brought back up to standards, which would be, I'm sure, pretty expensive. The other piece of it is there was an opportunity for one of our guys up there at the pond earlier in the year, and apparently that pond is down pretty low right now, as is everything. I've been assured by Dana and the other fire guys that there is water in the area. Specifically, Cole Pond is available. There's an access point that we can throw a suction device in. So there's no need for us. I mean, that pond is handy, especially if his house is on fire. But for the most part, there is water available. To be able to take possession or the city take possession of that road, it would have to be brought up to standards first. And for the little water that's in there, it didn't seem like it was a very good trade-off. Plus, there is the idea that we would be trading for water for fire services. And I'm not sure the town wants to get in the business of trading ownership of property to get to water for firefighting. That doesn't seem like the kind of thing we might not. It doesn't seem like something we'd want to do. But at any rate, that was the circumstances.
Yeah, I don't know if he was requesting an answer from the town, or if it's something that the fire department can reply to, or if by non-action that is our decision. Or
we should answer him. We sent a letter. He sent the letter to the fire department, and I wrote him back that the fire department did not have municipality relationship to be able to put pressure on the town for that. And I pointed out to him that people in his circumstances very often find a private person to manage the road for plowing, that sort of thing, is a lot more effective or efficient for their purposes than the town, because that's a small road. It will be prioritized behind the larger roads. And so he might be waiting a while for one of our already strapped guys to go up there and plow that out. So I put that in my letter response to him, but we do owe him at least a response showing that we considered it. If you would like, I could put that together and respond to him in that capacity.
Sure.
that makes sense to me.
I can do that.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be taking on any more town roads either. And then the whole issue of trading for things gets to be kind of complicated.
Yeah, I'm guessing, I could be wrong, but I'm guessing that if there's a fire up there, nobody's going to complain if we throw a hose in that, suck it out.
Yep. Okay, that's the fire department items. Paul, you did bring up another item that you wanted to put on the agenda.
I did. Are we at the end?
We are
Okay.
at the end for just prior to public concern, so we're up with you.
Okay. We the last emergency meeting we had, we apparently have, it's not entirely clear to me. We made a motion to make a statement. We did not discuss what the statement was going to be, but we agreed to make a motion. However, a statement was produced at the request of, and I think the exact quote was, I move whatever she said. Whatever she said was not vetted through the team, and there's some problems with what she said, and I'd like to suggest that we reevaluate that. Now that it's been published, we're a bit of a problem, but I'd like to point out a couple of quick things. And the first paragraph says the town of Jamaica condemns in the strongest terms any effort to spread targeted messages of hate that are designed to induce fear in any member of our community. We don't know what they're designed to do. If they in fact produce fear in any member of a community, that may be a problem, but we don't know what they're designed to. So legally that's a little bit fuzzy. But the one that bothers me the most is the next sentence says hateful speech aimed at any member of our community will not be tolerated. What does the town of Jamaica propose to do to demonstrate that it's not tolerating, quote, hate speech, unquote? So what we're saying is we're going to take this nebulous idea of what this speech was for, and then we're going to not tolerate it. So we as a town have opened ourselves up to some questions in this. I'm concerned that it was not debated. It was not brought to our attention. It was something that was rushed through the immediacy of the pressure from the public, perhaps. But in any case, I don't think this statement serves us well at all. And I think pushing it through quite that quickly, we made some mistakes on that one. So my concerns are, again, the design. You know, people can react even if the message was not designed for that. That happens periodically. And maybe you can infer design from reaction, but that's not a good thing, I don't believe. But tolerate, really, what are we going to do? What are we as a town going to do? And who gets to decide what isn't tolerated? So these kinds of things were not debated adequately for this to have been published already. kind of surprised it got published so quickly, but there we are. So yeah, I think we need to do something about this because we open ourselves up to some serious problems.
Well, I feel that, I mean, I'm pretty confident that we move this issue forward in a correct fashion, that it was warned properly, and that not warned, but I mean obviously warned. The meeting was warned, and the motion was stated properly, and that it was agreed to in a proper manner. I mean, I feel very confident we did that correctly. I would say that if there's still any question or debate, that we the meeting, the tape hasn't been published yet. I haven't had time to go through it. I don't think anybody has time to go through it, has had time. Nor have the minutes come out. I think that, like I said, I feel confident that we moved this forward correctly.
I can say that I sent those films over to BCTV. I'm not going to put Austin on the spot, and I guess Rich was going to edit them, but I don't know. I haven't heard back. So, and again, you asked me, Greg, why isn't it posted yet? And I said, well,
it usually takes a couple of days.
It takes a couple of days, yeah. And he was going to work over the weekend, so that's why it's not up there yet. But if anyone is interested in watching the film, I can provide it to you because I have a copy.
It said just something, that wasn't an emergency meeting, that was a special meeting.
Correct.
So, big deal. But this morning I was up with the birds, and it said that they were gonna, I just missed it, they rolled the Jamaica special meeting was scheduled to air at 5:30 this morning. But I didn't, it was like, it just got, I didn't see it. So I don't know if it ever made it on.
It was not out there. When did you email me, Greg? I can look real quick.
I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's a special meeting, so it's outside of,
But it was scheduled on the, how it scrolls on the,
yeah,
on the channel 8 and channel 10 on SV cable. It looked like they played it, but I didn't see it anywhere. Just information that really doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about.
No, the last select board meeting on here is the one from the 27th.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
So Joel, I see your hand. I want to keep this just a board discussion at this level right now.
I would like a copy though, if you could send me that, Tom.
Well, okay, here's what I need to do. There's a program, Greg will attest. It's too large to email. It's 400 megabytes. There's a program called WeTransfer. What I will do is I will upload it to your email address. You're gonna have to go set up an account, and then you download it. So I will get that done after this meeting. You'll have it tonight if you want to do that. But you have to sign up for the WeTransfer. It's free.
If we're that close to BCTV publishing it, and so it goes on the computer, you don't have to bother with that. I'll get it when they get it.
Okay, I'm just saying it's easy to do. It takes 5 minutes. I like I said, I did with Greg today.
It still takes a long time to download. At my slow connection, it took me an hour, and then I deleted it by accident, and so I couldn't get it back again. I couldn't get it to download the second time. So,
well, we just upped the bandwidth at the school, and it literally took like 2 minutes for it to upload. So I was like, oh, that's really cool.
We used to be able to get that like the next day. We would get the meeting link.
Austin
Remember?
just sent us all a message through the meeting with the link. Thank you, Austin.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch it now.
Okay, I'll put it on. I'll get the link, and if I can, I'll put it on the website tonight. So
going back to the initial, I know that there was definitely concern across on both, not both sides. That's not the right. I mean, there's a lot of concerns from many angles on this. I mean, the human side of things. There was also concern about the town taking a statement or making a statement. I know that I can see where that's a difficult thing to wade into the water, whatever the statement is, and how do you define it and who polices it. I believe, though, that we move correctly in moving this forward. And I don't think that we need to go back and rehash it, but I will welcome that for the public meeting aspect of things to review the tape. And if someone still disagrees that we hadn't moved it correctly, then we can bring that up at the next meeting.
Can do.
Yeah. Leave it up there.
Yep. Everyone go look at it.
And I just want to say, I posted it on the website the next day on the from the select board, order of the select board. Basically, it was asked that we do that. So haste makes
Right.
waste.
No, that was the decision that was made that night, right?
Yeah. And I think too that, Paul, we can talk about, what can the select board do, but I think a select board can make a stand on things. I'm not saying we're going to go, I don't know what that would be. And I think it would be a case by case basis, but I think a select board can react to those types of things if there is a threat, a real threat in the town.
And defining things is always going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
I think we just see what happens, just leave it there.
Yeah, I agree.
Joel, did you want to add on to, I'm always open for other, I probably get myself in trouble, not with you, Joel, but in general, that I open up the meetings to too much discussion.
Too much discussion is never too much discussion.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay. Just the point that it does say that we won't tolerate it, but it really, on the other side of the coin, doesn't say what we'll do. So we're free to do pretty much what would be legal. And the thing that we would do is call the sheriff. I mean, it doesn't, I don't think that implies at all that the select board has to go out and get the guy.
No.
We're not vigilantes.
No, we're not going to.
Exactly. And that's why we have the contract with the sheriff. So, yeah.
No.
All right. Thank you. Any other public concerns that we're at that point?
Hazel.
I couldn't unmute myself at the time you were discussing the sheriff. I just wanted to add that I watched the sheriff's car do a loop around the school property this morning. So they are doing something more than just check speeding.
Right.
Yeah, they definitely move about. So, yep.
They check the doors on that all the time.
They do,
They
really.
check to make sure the school's locked when it's supposed to be. I know they do that.
Yeah, and I think Andy reminded me, it was well before my time, but at one point, the sheriff's contract, and this may have been 6 years ago or 8, or I don't know, it was really specifically only for traffic. And we as a board, up that to include surveillance of the school and some other, some other areas. So they definitely do a lot of other things when they're out there.
Incidental law enforcement, I think it was something like that, where they're not actively seeking it, but if they come across it, they'll intervene.
Yeah.
Or if there was, so if they see someone doing something illegal, or they check a door and it's open, they'll go check it out.
It was another $5,000.
Yep.
So that'd be something to talk to them about. But we don't want to talk too much about how much they can do. We'll be doubling our contract. It's not, maybe we do want to do that, but I don't.
Well, I think
most of the time it's pretty quiet around here. As far as, 30 years ago, I can tell you, this was a rowdy little town. And it's a lot different now. It's a lot quieter.
Yeah, and I think it's a discussion too. I mean, that is the pros and cons. If we want to spend more money, that's higher taxes for more police presence. If we want to, have lower taxes, then you get what you pay for. So I mean, those are discussions to have, and hopefully we get public input, and find the right balance there.
Yeah. Thank you, Hazel. Thanks, Rob. I see your hand up. Thanks for being patient.
I have 2 concerns. One is the dog licenses were due in April, and we kind of sidestepped them because of the COVID not wanting people going into the town office. Maybe we could put out a blast somehow or another to initiate people to now try to at least send them in by mail. That's one concern I have, because my list is very short this year of dogs that are actually licensed. And the second one is more on a proactive basis. I've gone to Sherman-Williams or contacted them for 2 things. One is some type of a spray paint that we could use to cover up any graffiti that might come onto our roadway that is inappropriate. And I'm just getting the idea of what type of paint we need fast drying and black and just something that will hold up for a while. That, or the second thing was to find an anti-graffiti chemical, which they do make, that removes spray paint. So, and I'm just trying to get a quote from both those. So when I get those numbers, I will contact you guys again.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, VTrans has been very responsive and they've been handling that where we need. But you never know. It's always good to be prepared.
Yeah, well, I was saying that possibly, to have something at Karen's store, so if something ends up on Main Street that's really nasty, someone can just run into the store and grab a can of spray paint and cover it up. Because if you wait for VTrans, sometimes it's either later on in the day or the next day, and if it's really foul, we want to get rid of it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be good information to have. Yeah, and I think going back to the dog license, I recall that I remember we kind of postponed those, but I also think we had a date of July 1st, if I recall, that they would be due. But it's certainly, if you're not seeing the response rate, it wouldn't harm to go out to the past licensees and give them a reminder.
Yeah, I think, if we can do that, that would be great.
Okay.
I was muted before. I appreciate Rob's. I think it's a good idea to have some paint in case something foul comes up, but VTrans relaxed, and it's allowing all. I don't want to even go into this discussion again, but there's a policy in place for VTrans and the state police. And if the VTrans crews can't make the call to figure out what stays and what goes, there's a VTrans point man. And the way we get to them is through the sheriff's department. We get a direct line from the sheriffs to VTrans, and they'll clean it up. And part of the reason I like, that policy is in place. There's some criteria it's got to meet. It keeps us out of it. It keeps us out of having to clean it up, for one thing. And it has VTrans. They got all that paint removal stuff. They got line paint. They cleaned up that mess or whatever it was down on the corner of 130 pretty quick, as far as I know. It got reported and it was cleaned up pretty fast. But that policy's in place. That, if you ask me, was a breakdown of VTrans just relaxing, changing the law. And they said they'll deal with it, and I think that they should deal with it. And the state police. The state police says everyone must be heard. In VTrans, they can deal with all the paint, whatever it is. I think that leaves us out of making those decisions. But you can get free paint out of Sherwin-Williams just to get it. That's good. Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's a great point. I mean, VTrans, and I mean, that's their policy, and they seem to be living by their rules.
And if it was a private citizen who held on to it at D&K's per se, and they wanted to cover it,
I don't want to know about it.
Right. Exactly.
Problem if it was offensive, but again, it gets into, you don't want to censor free speech at the same time. It goes both ways. So
I like the policy they have in place that keeps the select board out of making decisions on cleaning that up.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? I'll take a motion to
adjourn.
Adjourn the meeting.
Damn.
Second the motion.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Oh, no, already?
No, I want to apologize for Tom. I didn't dump out what he was saying before my computer crashed, so I missed.
Oh.
But you and I can talk later.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk later, Paul. We can talk offline. Or you can watch the film.
I'll do both.
Yeah. All righty.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.